How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.
What's going on, guys? Marco here from 14P, bringing you some Dynasty trade targets. We're at that point of the season where you pretty much know if you're a true contender or if you're at the bottom of the barrel or if you're going to sneak into the playoffs, but you know that you're not going to be there for long. And this is a great time for contenders and everyone else in your league to be making moves, making trades to set you up for an awesome offseason heading into 2022. So I am going to break this down by position. So I'm going to start with two quarterback targets. And it's Trey Lance and Justin Fields, the rookies of 2021. Obviously, Trey Lance really hasn't seen much run as a quarterback in 2021 with the 49ers. They've been a little bit of a up and down team, and they've committed to Jimmy G at this point so far. But I think Trey Lance really does make take a huge step next year. So if you can go ahead and get Trey Lance for something fairly inexpensive in one QB leagues, go ahead and do that, because I think he could break out and be a contender or a potential to be a QB1 next year. So I like Trey Lance quite a bit. And then Justin Fields, of course, last night against the Steelers, he had probably one of his better games of the season. And obviously it ended up in a loss, but he has still shown a lot of nice attributes. You can't really judge a ton of what he's doing with how bad the play call and how bad the protection has been for the Chicago Bears. But Justin Fields has looked like he could be the real deal. I think he is much more valuable to me even than a Trey Lance. And no matter what the Bears do during the season, I think they're going to find a new coach for 2022. And I think Justin Fields is a major benefactor of that. He has shown that he can do it at the NFL level. He just needs to be given a little bit more time to kind of develop, a little bit more protection, and hopefully an offensive coordinator that is slightly more competent at the very least than Matt Nagy and the few good things that Bill Lazor has done. Obviously, in Superflex leagues, you're not touching these guys. You're not going to be able to pay the price to get them. But in one QB leagues, Justin Fields and Trey Lance, I think, are probably two of the younger guys in the league who could catapult themselves into QB1 territory for 2022 and beyond. And maybe even, Justin Fields, I think he truly has top 5 quarterback potential in 2022 if he can get, take a big step and find out what they're doing on offense and get a little bit more of an identity there. So I like these two quite a bit. Like I said, Superflex, you probably won't get them, especially in Dynasty, but one QB leagues, I don't think it's too risky to say I would pay, a fair amount for these guys. I'm trying to think of what I would pay for these guys off the top of my head. I'm not really sure, but if you're not a contender at all and you've got Mike Williams, he's a guy I'm throwing out quite a bit, I feel like, but if you've got Mike Williams and you're not really a contender at all, but you need a quarterback, I would trade Mike Williams for Justin Fields and something else. I think that's kind of the range that you can look for, because Mike Williams' trajectory is going down. Obviously, he's older as a wide receiver as well. And I think Justin Fields and Trey Lance both are going the opposite direction. All right. Running backs. I've only got 2 running backs for you guys, and they're both hurt. One is not playing at all, and that's J.K. Dobbins. And then the other is playing, but it's inefficient, and he's, of course, got the thorn in his side that is J.D. McKissic. I don't think that lasts. J.D. McKissic most likely moves on after the season. Sure, they could re-sign him, but I think really what we're overlooking is that we haven't seen a healthy Antonio Gibson since week 1. And in week 1, he dominated all of the touches for the running backs, basically. He saw tons of passing down work. He saw tons of early down work. Antonio Gibson was the guy we were hoping for in week 1. Hurt his shin in week 2, hasn't been the same ever since. If you are in a league where the Antonio Gibson owner has valued him as like a low-end RB2, high-end RB3, go get Antonio Gibson, because once he's healthy, which, could take, all of the offseason, that might be a little worrisome too. I think 2022 is going to be a huge season for Antonio Gibson. He's going to get right. Won't have to worry about this stress fracture in his shin. I love what he can do as a player, as a talent. And this team's going to need him to be right and get healthy for the 2022 season. And then J.K. Dobbins, obviously he had a torn ACL, which is not a fun injury. Running backs don't always come back the same. But, a lot of these running backs have started to, over the past 3 to 5 years, come back much better than they have in the past from a torn ACL. And J.K. Dobbins is coming into the 2022 season after this time off where he was expected to probably flirt with top 12 running back numbers. I had him in my top 12. A lot of other people had him more like in your top 15 to 18. But even if you're buying at a minimum a top 18 running back in J.K. Dobbins, you can go get him from maybe a contender who needs a player to actually be playing for their team. You can go get him at a very discounted price. Both these guys you can get at discounted prices, and I would be trying to get both of them, as many leagues as I can. Right now, I've got J.K. Dobbins in a lot of places, but I've made a lot of moves in the last 2 to get Antonio Gibson from people who just have given on him, and they know they need to get wins now. So Antonio Gibson, J.K. Dobbins are my top 2 running back targets that you can get at a huge discount for what their true value is. All right. Wide receiver. We've got a lot of wide receivers, and a lot of them are young talent, people who a lot of people thought were going to break out this season. Darnell Mooney's on this list. I was saying all offseason, Darnell Mooney is a very good player. If we're truly looking for a Darnell Mooney breakout, it's going to be in 2022, not in 2021. Justin Fields had to learn the system. He had to figure out what he was going to do in this Bears offense. They have to figure out what they're doing with Matt Nagy. And so the reality is they're going to probably get rid of Matt Nagy. They're going to improve, hopefully, their offensive line either through free agency or in the draft. And Darnell Mooney has looked good. He's gotten great chemistry with Justin Fields. I think the breakout is happening in 2023. We haven't seen it yet. So go ahead and shoot for a guy like Darnell Mooney. Donovan Peoples-Jones, right now, he's kind of getting more and more opportunity on this team, obviously, with the release of OBJ and the banged-up Jarvis Landry. There's been a lot of questions there. But come next season, Jarvis Landry might also be gone. So DPJ might be the main pass catcher on this team. Sure, they might bring someone in, but he's going to be the guy who knows the system. He's going to be the guy who has the chemistry with Baker. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones could be a huge breakout in 2022 as well. And you can get him for wide receiver 3 value right now. In dynasty leagues, go get that if you can. If you can trade, package a couple of seconds for a DPJ, I would do that. I would honestly do that for him. I would do that for Mooney. If you need to throw in some players, if you have questions about trading for these guys, hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P because I think it's worth it. All right, so the next couple guys on my list we got to talk about because you're probably not getting them very cheap because they're going to be getting better and better and better. So you got to capitalize like now. But Rashod Bateman, he has a phenomenal rest of season schedule. He's looked like he is beating out everyone else. Even when Sammy comes back, I think he's locked in as the wide receiver 2 on this team. And the things we were most worried about for him in fantasy was that this team doesn't throw the ball enough. Well, they're throwing the ball enough. And he's seeing, somewhere from 5 to 8 targets a game. That's going to keep getting better for him. And next season, another season under his belt, I think he could take a huge step. In the offseason last season, I comped him to an Allen Robinson type. I think he's a more complete wide receiver than Hollywood Brown. Hollywood's obviously been a revelation this year, which fans of Hollywood last season are excited to see. But I think when it comes to who is the true alpha skill set, I think Rashod Bateman fills that role much better than a Hollywood Brown. Obviously, Hollywood's got more chemistry with Lamar, but next season that might not be the case. So I think Bateman could be the guy you get this year, and we see a Hollywood Brown-like breakout next season, and he's a kind of guy who can keep it. I'm not saying he's going to be wide receiver 6 through, the first 5 or 6 weeks in the season, but I think he could flirt with, high-end wide receiver 2 numbers next year because I think he takes over as the number 1 wide receiver target for the Ravens in 2022. All right, now I've got the Moores, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore. Elijah Moore had his breakout game last week. Obviously, it was with Mike White, not Zach Wilson, so who knows what's going on there. But Elijah Moore has this whole offseason, everyone is saying, he has the opportunity to really break out in this wide receiver class because of his route running. We haven't gotten to see a ton of that. He's been banged up a little bit. He's been used inconsistently and in weird ways. Corey Davis being in and out has let him on and off the field in a number of games. And really what I think you need to do with Elijah Moore is get him now and don't worry about what he does the rest of the season. He might have some really nice games. He might have some absolute duds for 2021. I don't think it matters. I truly don't. The only thing that would be why it would matter is if he does have dud games and you can get him for cheaper. Because right now, Elijah Moore's value after last week is probably a little bit higher, but he can outperform what he's done this season easily. I mean, Jamison Crowder is not the answer. Corey Davis has been up and down all over the place. He's not the answer. Denzel Mims, they just don't really want to use, but they have to sometimes. and he's not the answer. Elijah Moore is going to be the answer next season. And I think he could start taking that over as soon as this week, or last week, I mean. Then Rondale Moore, he's a little bit of a guy who I think is worth targeting because he's got explosiveness, he's got upside. His depth of target is absolute garbage. It's like 1.1 yards. And he is inconsistent in what he's going to see target-wise in this offense. AJ Green might not be around that long. Who knows how Christian Kirk's breakout is going to last, how long that's going to last. And then obviously Hopkins is getting older. Rondale Moore is a guy who I think you can get for cheap, but you can expect a lot less than what we've seen from the last couple of guys I just mentioned. He just won't probably see the targets and the opportunity that you're hoping for, but he still has the opportunity to be a solid flex next year if he can get a little bit more play, if he gets on the field a little bit more than, the AJ Greens of the world. Who knows what's going to happen with him next year. So Rondale Moore is a guy who I'm okay buying right now. I'm not okay buying for any price that really is anything significant because I don't know if I trust him. Last offseason, he was my pick to bust in this draft. And while I may have been wrong about that, I'm not sure if he's going to see some huge step forward in 2022, but he's still a guy I'm willing to buy if you're willing to expect, set flex to value. And if you can get him for that value. All right. Last but not least for wide receivers is Terrace Marshall Jr. He has been banged up and inconsistent this year. A lot of it having to do with Sam Darnold. But really why I'm buying him is because who knows what they do with Sam Darnold. Maybe they draft a quarterback. Maybe they hold on to Sam Darnold. Who knows? But I think Robbie Anderson has shown us he is not truly the number 2 wide receiver there. He shouldn't be. And right now he is because they have a rookie who's been banged up. And so I think Terrace Marshall dominates when he's healthy. I think he does start to slowly take that over once he gets back on the field consistently enough. And I think with a whole offseason under his belt, that's just going to help him. So I think Terrace Marshall is ranked above Rondale for me, under Elijah Moore for me. So if I had to rank the 6 guys I have here, I would probably put them as Rashod Bateman, Darnell Mooney, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Terrace Marshall, Rondale Moore. That's how I'm valuing these guys. If you have questions of kind of what on your team you would be willing to move or should be willing to move, drop comments below. Hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P. All right, let's go to tight ends. And I've just got one, so I'll keep it sweet. Tight end Cole Kmet. He was really inconsistent. He had some issues with drops and some fumbles, and he was really important for this team to block. The Bears have an awful O-line, and he's 6'6", 260. So he's obviously going to be a body they need to block sometimes, and that's how they've been using him. But I think as Justin Fields progresses, as this offense evolves a little bit more, who knows who they bring in, like I said earlier in this video, at head coach next year. But I think he's going to be a nice safety blanket for Justin Fields in 2022. And it is that tight end year 3 breakout, right? And he's heading into year 3 in 2022. And I think he could have a huge breakout, the breakout most people were hoping for this season. And I think Jimmy Graham will also be gone at that point. So that'll also help Cole Kmet quite a bit. All right, guys. Well, thank you for bearing with me and hanging out for this Dynasty Trade Targets video. If you have any questions, like I said, DM me, follow me at Marco_14P on Twitter. Drop comments below here. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.
How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.